Welcome to the next edition of the Thai Initiative's Thai Luntan, the video forum where we examine relations and issues related to new thinking in the America-China relationship. Today, we are going to talk about Jimmy Carter's post-presidential China impact, and there is no better expert at this than to have Liu Yawei of the Carter Center's China program with us, live from Atlanta, Georgia. Liu Yawei, hello.
Hello, Carson. How are you?
Very, very well. It's great to have you on the program. It's fun to get to know you.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on.
We know that President Carter really knows leadership. Anyone who has studied leadership understands that by being through the crucible, which Jimmy Carter has been through, you really learn a lot about what it takes to lead, motivate, and influence people. He's been, of course, achieving great things at the national level. He received tremendous pressure while there, and afterward went on to do possibly even greater work, tremendous things that have gone on in his life that have resulted in people today looking at him with very high esteem for many of the things that he's accomplishing and leading people to do. I don't think many people know that he has, in this way, continued to contribute to America China relations. He was president when China first opened up at the end of the 1970s, but has, of course, done a lot of things. And we'd like to hear something from you, Liu Yawei, first to tell our leaders about what exactly has Jimmy Carter been doing and how does the center manifest or execute that?
Thanks, Carson, for the questions. President Carter always liked to say he was one of those Americans who used the White House as a stepping stone to fame. In fact, when he was in the White House, he negotiated with China's leader, Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping at the time, to establish diplomatic relationship with China. That was in 1979. And obviously, he was involuntarily retired by the American people, as he often likes to tell people. So he returned to Georgia, not to Atlanta, but to the small village called Plains, Georgia, where he lived. In 1982, he launched the Carter Center. One of the programs at the Carter Center is to work with China on various issues. President Carter and Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping were great friends. So after he left the White House, he was told by Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping, you can visit China anytime you wanted to visit China. So during one of those visits, Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping told President Carter, my son worked for the National Association of the disabled people in China. Would the Carter Center like to work with that association? So that was in the early 1990s when the Carter Center stepped into China, worked with the National Association of Disabled People, and started offering training to special education teachers from China. It also helped China establish a production line of artificial limbs. So these are the initial projects of the Carter Center in China.
Well, that's really great to hear about. And I believe there's going to be no small connection between that story and what has continued to proceed in China in the area of handicapped assistance to people, assistance and social change in China regards handicapped issues from one of our future Taiwan Time guests, Joe Baolin. So that's really great to hear about that beginnings. What would you say is one of the most significant things that's happened as a result of the engagement and the creation of the Carter Center?
So the center's relationship with China has evolved from the initial project of providing assistance to the disabled people in China. In the middle 1990s, the Chinese government approached the Carter Center and told President Carter and others, saying, we actually had elections in our villages. Would the Carter Center care to observe these elections and told the world about these elections? So in 1996, the Carter Center sent its first mission to China to observe elections at the village level in China. There are 600,000 villages in China. So from 1996 up to about 2001, for 15 years, the Carter Center observed grassroots elections in China. And in today's terminology, we told the China story of elections to the outside world. And for that, we were always, when we travel to China, people will come to us and say, where the elections are going, when these elections are going to move up to the next higher level. And then there was yet another change in 2012 when President Carter visited China, and Vice President at the time, Xi Jinping, told President Carter, "You normalize the relationship between China and the United States. Would like the center to work more on advancing the bilateral relationship between Beijing and Washington."
That's tremendous. Well, that's definitely going to connect right in with what we want to talk about today. I'd like to learn a little bit before we go into that aspect of assisting bilateral relations by thinking and hearing from you about Jimmy Carter's personal leadership style. Every leader is different. Is there something that you can share with us about what are some of the greatest attributes that Jimmy Carter demonstrates in his leadership style and method? What is it that young aspiring leaders should really look to him to learn about doing?
I think the leadership attributes of President Carter are as follows. First of all, you got to have courage, and that courage was demonstrated when he was the president. The courage was demonstrated when he left the White House. Second, President Carter always to say you have to tell truth wherever you go, wherever projects you engage, you need to tell people the truth. You don't want to tell what they want to listen. You don't want to tell half truths. The third attribute, particularly related to the Carter Center, is wherever you're going to go, you need to have the approval of that particular country for the Carter Center to work on the ground. I think with courage, with this ability to tell truth, and also with approval of the host country, that's why the Carter Center is able to work in so many countries in the world today.
I'm really glad to hear that that's one of the high attributes, working not just in a way that you think is going to help people, but to listen to them and ask them for the permission to even be there, to not feel like I got to help you, to simply come alongside and say, can I partner with you in what it is that you're struggling through?
Yeah,
It
I think
sounds
you just mentioned the magic word, partnership. It's not Carter Center going to these countries in a condescending way and telling the people what to do, what need to happen, but everything is designed, monitored, and implemented in consultation with the other side. So it's always a partnership. Without partnership, nothing can be sustained.
that's right. That's awesome. Well, Yahweh, before we run out of time, I'd like to also talk about how the Carter Center as an NGO is part of this really big movement that the Tainoship has been trying to talk more about in subnational leadership, particularly in America-China relations, and the fact that it participates certainly as an NGO in this larger movement of what is going on in the relationship. And I think that President Carter and you and others bring a lot of new thinking into this. Clearly, Jimmy Carter does carry huge national significance. His presence and his name, it helps your center operate at the national level. But could you share with us a few thoughts and to reflect on how the leadership of an NGO can contribute in the larger picture to influencing the character of the nation in how we are relating to one another?
I think there are multiple dimensions in the answer to your question. As number one, President Carter certainly has national appeal. President Carter was the leader of one of the most powerful countries in the world. So the Carter Center, because of President Carter, does have that convening power. And when President Carter travels to a country, or when his representative travels to a country, certainly it will stir up the bubbles. The leadership of that particular country or agencies at the central level will certainly engage the Carter Center. But most of the work the Carter Center did and has been doing in China are with non-governmental sectors. We work with the National Association of the Disabled People. That's a subnational uh, organization in China. We work with the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. That certainly is a
Hmm.
subnational organization. We work with local, provincial, city uh, organizations of friendship with foreign countries, but most of all, we also work with individuals, with scholars, with researchers. We invite them to come to the meeting. We invite them to come to observe how decisions are getting made, how officials are getting elected in the US. So all these things happen actually, they're beyond the national interaction, like Washington and Beijing. So we're doing these things in a non-governmental way, in a subnational way, and we think we get people to come together to share their ideas,
Hmm.
no longer bridges between the two countries.
Well, I can only imagine that an invitation received in China from the Carter Center China program to come and participate in a program is an invitation that hardly anyone ever wants to have to decline.
That's great. And I was just in Austin talking to David Firestein, who you're going to invite for your next or in the most near future in the show, and we're talking about putting something together with the theme on subnational uh, relationship between China and the U.S. Hopefully this coming November.
Well, I look forward to being part of that conversation.
Thanks for inviting me
Well,
to be on your show.
you are the leader. Just as we close out, I'll give you a chance here. You're the leader of the China program for the center. As a leader, is there anything that you want to help people understand or that you'd like to share personally?
Well, the China program at the Carter Center right now, we have three main projects. The first one is to promote U.S.-China collaboration in Africa. We think U.S. and China have the same mission, have the same interest in that
Mm-hmm.
continent, and we're just looking for again subnational players, businesses, non-governmental organizations from both countries, to focus on issues that Africans want them to work on. The second project we have is to get young leaders, emerging leaders to come together from both US and China to share what where they see the relationship is now and what's their vision of the future about other relationship of US and China. And lastly is we run a Chinese language website. We want people to come to this called the 中美印象, US-China Perception Monitor. So we would like people to come and to also to contribute to the website to share their thoughts on this very volatile, at the same time, even vulnerable relationship at the present time.
All three great initiatives. I look forward to participating in those as we can. That's really great. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
we,
again for
we
your time. Yes, yes.
yeah, we look forward to work with Thai Initiative and hopefully we can have joint projects on the ground in the near future.
Well, you heard it here, folks. All right. Yahweh,
Okay,
thank you for your time. Everyone, thank you for listening. This has been the Thai Initiative with Tai Lun Tan. Until next time, 再见.
thank you. Bye bye.